Women always have to put up a fight.
A blood-soaked woman rises from the desert dust. Shimmering heat waves distort the line between prey and predator. A man whispers, "No one will believe you." Then, she is pushed from a cliff. When a young woman is betrayed and left for dead in the middle of nowhere, she doesn't just survive, she turns the hunt around. Revenge is raw, bloody, and absolutely relentless. Here's what to expect in my recap of Revenge 2017. I'll start with a punchy 3-word recap: survive, rise, reclaim. Then I'll share what stood out to me, from the story and visuals to why this film still hits hard today. We'll go deeper into the main themes like female rage and rebirth, patriarchy and power, and justice in the wild. Of course, I'll also drop some slick flick facts and hidden details along the way, plus my final verdict to help you decide, is this a must-watch or a pass? Let's begin the reckoning. The film opens in a remote desert, where wealthy businessman Richard arrives by helicopter with his girlfriend, Jennifer, or Jen, for a private getaway before his annual hunting trip with friends. As the pilot leaves, he hands Richard a piece of peyote as a welcoming gift. Inside the sleek house, Richard and Jen waste no time and fall into a wild, passionate encounter. Later that night, while Jen sleeps, Richard casually takes a phone call from his wife, putting on the act of a devoted husband. Jen knows he's married, but she doesn't seem to mind keeping their affair secret. The next morning, Jen dances through the house in a revealing outfit, only to find 2 men outside watching her. It's Richard's friends, Stan and Dimitri, who arrived a day earlier than expected. Richard isn't pleased. He wanted to keep Jen out of sight. As she walks away, Stan watches her closely, clearly interested. That night, the group lounges by the pool. Dimitri uses binoculars to ogle Jen, while Stan stares without shame. When they notice the peyote, Richard jokes that it's a powerful hallucinogen, one that once drove a man to cut off his own leg. He asks Jen to store it safely. Later, as the group drinks, Jen begins dancing seductively. When Richard won't join her, she turns to Stan, and the two share a flirtatious moment. The next morning, Jen finds Richard gone. Stan says he went to deliver their passports to the gamekeeper and won't be back for hours. Stan makes several awkward attempts to flirt, but Jen ignores him. Growing uncomfortable, she tries to pack up and leave. As she changes in her room, Stan creeps in, slips her his card, and makes a move. Jen shuts him down, saying he's not her type, too short. Insulted, Stan snaps and forces himself on her. Blaming her for dancing the night before. Jen pleads with him to stop. Dimitri sees what's happening, but closes the door and cranks up the TV to drown out her cries. He goes for a swim like nothing's wrong. When Richard returns, he senses tension. Stan tells him there was an issue with Jen. Richard finds her crying in bed. She begs him to call the helicopter so she can leave. Realizing what's happened, Richard only scolds his friends, but does nothing more. Later, he claims to have arranged a job for her in Canada, near enough to Los Angeles, he says. Jen refuses. When she threatens to tell his wife, Richard explodes, slapping her and calling her names. Terrified, Jen runs into the desert. Richard chases her, followed by Stan and Dimitri. She reaches a cliff. Richard pretends to calm her down, then suddenly pushes her off. Stan and Dimitri are shocked, but Richard insists they had no choice. If Jen talked, they'd all go to prison. They leave to get their guns and clean up later. Alone and impaled, Jen regains consciousness. Barely alive, she crawls to safety and hides. The men return, stunned to find her body gone. They realize they must hunt her down. Richard sends them to climb down while Jen, bloodied and weak, hides nearby. As they follow her trail, she slips across a lake just as Dimitri arrives on a quad bike. Hiding underwater, she spots his unattended gun. As he turns his back, Jin grabs it, but it clicks empty. Dmitri grabs her, mocking her for falling for his trap. He drags her into the water, drowning her like prey. But Jin fights back, stabbing him in one eye, then the other. She watches him die without flinching, dumps his body, takes his gear, and escapes on his bike. Stan, thinking Jin is dead, naps by the lake. Later, Jin's bike breaks down. She walks barefoot, finds shelter, and drinks a beer from Dimitri's pack. Inspecting her wound, she's overwhelmed by pain. She sees the pendant around her neck. Inside is the peyote. Remembering its effects, she eats it. Hallucinations take over. In this altered state, she numbs her pain, removes the branch from her body, and cauterizes the wound using a hot beer can. The next day, Richard and Stan joke about Jin's death until they find Dimitri's body floating in the lake. Panicked, they weigh him down and sink him. As Richard prepares to leave and regroup, he punches Stan. Jin, meanwhile, recovers and sets out for revenge. She regains control and goes hunting. Richard and Stan argue over their next move. Richard suggests splitting up, but Stan refuses. Frustrated, Richard leaves. Stan uses a mirror to clean his wound. Unaware, Jin is watching through binoculars. She follows him quietly. When his car runs out of fuel, he walks to fetch some. Jin lines up a shot with her heavy rifle, struggling but determined. She fires and hits his shoulder. Wounded, Stan vanishes. Jin follows the trail of blood, but finds only his shoe. Stan is hiding, waiting to ambush her. He fires, grazing her ear. She runs. To outsmart him, Jin breaks her flashlight, leaving glass shards behind. Stan steps on them, screams, and digs them out in agony. Enraged, he jumps in his car and charges at her. Jin aims and fires, hitting him right between the eyes. He crashes, dead. She gets in the car and hears Richard on the radio. Calmly, she heads for the house. Back at the house, Richard waits for Stan. Sensing something's wrong, he calls the helicopter and showers. A noise startles him. Gun in hand, he searches, naked and on edge. He accidentally switches on the TV, panics, and turns to find Jin outside, aiming a gun. She shoots him in the gut. Now, the tables have turned. Richard becomes the hunted. Wounded, he crawls away as Jin closes in. He sets a trap, but Jin notices his blood trail and avoids it. Knowing he's bleeding badly, Richard wraps his stomach in plastic. Jin finds him again and shoots. He runs, she chases. In the chaos, Jin slips in his blood, giving Richard a chance to attack. He tortures her, but she stabs him in the wound, grabs her rifle, and finishes the job with a final shot. All three men who assaulted her are now dead. Wounded but alive, Jin walks away from the house, battered, bloodied, and free. As the sound of a helicopter grows louder behind her, Jin finally turns around. Zooming out from the blood, sand, and bullets, revenge isn't just about survival. Beneath the chaos lies something deeper, a story of female rage and rebirth. Jin endures something unspeakable, but instead of staying broken, she rises, bloodied, burning, reborn. She sheds the role of helpless victim and becomes a force of reckoning, fighting back with every ounce of power she has left. At its core, this film flips the male gaze on its head. Where women are often reduced to objects, revenge reclaims the narrative, giving Jin full control over how she's seen. Not through the eyes of men, but on her own terms. And in the vast, lawless desert, there are no rules, no safety nets. No one's coming to save her. So she becomes her own justice system, judge, jury, and executioner. So what does that leave us? Revenge is not just a genre film. It's a primal scream. Visually stunning and thematically sharp, it dismantles tropes with every drop of blood. On the flick verdict scale, this is a must-watch, a fearless feminist thrill ride. Raw, unapologetic, and cathartic. Bottom line, this isn't just payback, it's a total reclamation of power. Loved watching a victim become the storm? Flick Favorites dives deep into the raw, the bold, and the brutally brilliant. Hit that like button and subscribe for more stories where justice doesn't wait for permission. Comment below, did Jin go too far or not nearly far enough? This one was intense. See you in the next breakdown.